All right, let's get started. Welcome to the Occupational Therapy Recovery Conference 2020, Reimagine, Connect, and Inspire. The Edmonton Mental Health and Addictions OT Practice Council are excited to host this conference once again. And obviously, due to the pandemic, the conference has been converted to an online format instead of our 2-day in-person conference we normally hold. We hope this is a great learning experience for everyone. We also want to assure people that we still will be around and back in 2021, so please look out for us. You can type your questions in the Q&A chat box and they'll be answered at the end. And of course, we would like to thank SAOT for their continued support in providing this conference. Now on to our presenter. I am very pleased to present Jenilyn, who is an occupational therapist with the Recovery Supports Day program based out of Edmonton. All right, Jenilyn, you can take it away.
Maybe. Perfect. Thanks, Andrew. And welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us as we chart this new territory of the virtual age. It's fitting that I got to go first in our virtual conference to talk about how we can all enter this new age together and how to do it effectively and to provide the best care for our clients as we do so. So just as a reminder for people, our learning objectives for today is by the end, I hope that you'll be able to identify 3 features or more that make Zoom more than just a video call. So what makes this better than using FaceTime or potentially even better than using Skype? Hopefully from following some of the tutorials I'll show, you'll be able to effectively use 2 to 3 of the more advanced Zoom features. I will add, I use the word advanced to mean just more tricky than start a meeting, end a meeting. They do not require the upgraded account. The majority of what I'll talk about today is available in the basic account. So hopefully that means it'll be useful and accessible for most of you. And I will give the warning now, as I was writing this, I started to have some worries. I'm like, oh no, this is dry. This presents a little bit like a YouTube instructional video. I will be going through the settings. I will be showing you what they are. I'm sort of showing you how to set them, but that part is pretty easy. But we'll go through it and I'll explain to you what I've learned in the last 7 months of using Zoom. And then also sprinkled throughout and then talked again a bit more specifically at the end is some privacy, security, and confidentiality features. As I was writing this, I was realizing, oh, there's a lot I've learned in the last 7 months that helped us provide more confidential and safer Zoom meetings for our clients. So I'm hoping that that'll be useful to all of you. And yes, and I've mentioned my experiences a couple times here, but to give background to everybody on what made me feel I could speak on this topic, I've been using Zoom since the pandemic started. Our teams got redeployed to different parts of addictions and mental health services here in Edmonton. And I was fortunate enough to be sent to Hope and Wellness, which during the pandemic jumped on Zoom with lightning speed. And by mid-April, I think we were offering online groups and learning how to do this on the job. So through that experience, I got to learn how to do Zoom groups, and then I learned how to do one-to-one with the Zoom. I also work part-time pediatrics on the side of my AHS job. And again, pandemic, I was using Zoom for that as well. So I've learned how to use this effectively with adults and with children and with groups and one-to-one. And so this whole webinar is going to be a mishmash of all of those things. So hopefully you'll be able to pick out what it is that's going to be the most helpful for you. To help with that, before we begin on the actual content, I want everyone to take a moment and consider what your typical or ideal in-person session looks like. Think of how you like to interact with your clients. How do you feel energized and like you're really supporting with them? How do you like to connect to people? I have some examples on here, like, do you like to draw or use visuals? That one's huge for me. Are you someone who's often helping people fill out forms, finding forms, apply for jobs, apply for school? When you're running groups, do you like to have big group discussion and have group sharing where people raise their hands or where people can connect with each other on those things? Do you like to have small group discussions where you send people off in pairs or groups of 3? And a little bit of my pediatric side coming out. Do you like to sing songs or play games or any of those sorts of things? So I'll give everyone like 30 seconds just to think about what you like to see in your in-person session. So that way, as I go through this webinar, you can write down the things that will help you do this in your virtual session. So you can write down, I like to draw in my sessions. Then when I talk about the tools within Zoom that'll help you draw, you can make note of that to make sure you don't miss it and you know how to do that moving forward. Chat. So yes, if you have paper, write it down, just to make sure you get out of today what you need to get out of today. And with that, we'll dive in. First things first, we're starting with the basics, getting into your Zoom account. Unfortunately, because this isn't my Zoom account, it's actually SAOT's, which they were fantastic to get for us and to upgrade for us so we could do this. But what that meant is I couldn't do polling, and I'll show you why I couldn't do it later on. So I don't know for sure if everyone's with AHS, if there's people out of province, if there's people in private practice, etc. If you are not AHS, I will apologize now. There's a lot of AHS content in here, but we will go over other things as well. First thing first, that took me months to learn, if you are signing into an AHS account, you actually sign in with SSO. You don't just sign in up here. This will work. This is where you're actually supposed to sign in. It'll bring you to this page where you type in Alberta Health Services, and then you can go and log in. Really basic right off the bat, but that is the actual proper way to sign in for all of us who are with AHS. Once you're logged in, it's going to take you to your profile page. This is actually the profile for my personal account that I use for my private practice, just to basically show the license type. So if you are someone who's asking for a licensed or advanced account, it takes a few weeks to get it. And this is where you'll actually find out. They don't typically send an email or really give you a call or anything. It's you'll log into this page and it'll tell you right here if you're basic or not. I also like to let people know if you're doing one-to-one sessions, there's not a whole lot about the advanced account that you would actually need. Basic will allow you to do more than 40 minutes with one person. It's if you're trying to do 2-hour groups or longer groups that really that advanced license account is really helpful, because that's where you can have more than one participant and not get booted out at the 40-minute mark. So the majority of our talk today is actually going to be in this one over here. So everything I'm showing you that has this white background with the Zoom in the corner is from the Zoom webpage, www.zoom.us. You can do settings from the Zoom app, which you can access and download and all of those things, but it doesn't have all of them. So if you're wanting to do more intricate setting work, you're going to have to go through the web browser and come here into settings. Once we hit settings, and again, this is the part where we're going to get a little bit dry, and I'm going to try and spice it up with some stories about how I've learned what I've learned. But again, be ready to write down the things that are most applicable for you and maybe take your drink of coffee on the things that aren't. So to start, in our settings, we have security. And the first thing in there is the waiting room. The waiting room is what enables your clients to all log in, get their camera set up, get their audio set up, and then wait for you to start the meeting. So waiting rooms can be super helpful with security and privacy and with getting your sessions going quickly. The reason I really like the waiting room for security is you can pick individual people to come in from a waiting room. So if for some reason your password got sent out to the wrong people or someone's email got hacked and there's other people trying to join this meeting that you don't recognize, again, particularly in a group setting, the waiting room enables you to pick specifically who's coming in, so people can't just randomly pop into your meeting. It also, again, helps with that time because they are ready to go. They don't have to wait for you to log on, so they can log on. This is an advanced feature. So advanced meaning you do need the licensed version, but it's kind of cool. So I wanted to include it. If you have a licensed edition of Zoom, you can do what's called a customized waiting room. So in here, you can create your own message saying welcome or please wait, we'll let you in soon. You can add a logo. So for AHS, we can add the AHS logo so they know they're meeting with us. Or if you have a private practice and you're trying to do some branding, that can go in there as well. The name of your meeting goes here, and then you can just give your clients a little bit of a note. So I made an example note, which is welcome to my Zoom room. You can expect your appointment to start at the scheduled time. While waiting, please ensure your mic and audio are working. And think about what you'd like to accomplish for the session. So again, my hope with my customized waiting room is just so when we start the session, we can get right to business, use their time and my time to the fullest extent. Back to our settings list. I'm not going to talk about every single one. That probably itself would have taken us over an hour. So I am just highlighting the ones that I found most useful. If you have questions about the ones I'm sliding over, please feel free to throw them in the Q&A and I will try and answer them at the end. So ones I have highlighted here, chat and private chat. As has already been used in this session, chat can be super helpful. It allows people to engage a little bit easier. People can ask questions that they don't feel are relevant enough to need a hand up or they need people to ask, where they're just like, oh, can someone send me this at the end? They didn't want to interrupt the flow. Or if someone has to leave and they're just sending a thumbs up to say they're going, chat can be really, really helpful. One of the lessons I've learned using Zoom that I wanted to highlight here is private chat. It has some parts that could be helpful. I recommend disabling it because it has some privacy and security considerations. First off is that clients, could chat to one another, which again, this is groups, which could lead to in-group bullying or in-group harassment because you're not going to be able to see that. The other thing that I think is going to happen more often, and I've for sure had happened with me, is clients will send you as the instructor a private chat, not realizing that the chat will pop up in the middle of the window. Either if they tap it to be like, oh, who's talking to me? Or sometimes it will automatically pop up depending on your settings. And then all of a sudden you have, oh, I have to leave. My grandma just got diagnosed with cancer and we're having a huge family kerfuffle. And everyone got to read that. So to avoid those kind of breaches or those moments where you're like, I didn't maintain confidentiality, I recommend just disabling private chat and letting your clients know to access you either by email or text message or phone or whatever else you have accessible to you. Sound notifications for when someone joins or leaves the group. I have that set to play sound for everybody. This one I like, again, more groups. You will notice if you're in a one-to-one session and someone runs away on you. But the reason I like this is similar to our in-person groups, that if someone got up and ran from the room, we would check on them. We would want to make sure they were okay. This lets us know if someone runs away from our virtual group and when. So you might notice 15 minutes later based on video, but the sound tells you at that second, someone is gone. You should check who, or your co-facilitator should check who and see if a check-in is necessary. This is one of the few things I have in here that's really not for anyone at AHS, but for anyone outside of AHS, and that's the file transfer. So host and participant can send files through the in-chat meeting, again, or in-meeting chat. This could be quite helpful for doing forms. Again, I've done resumes, I've done ASH applications, things like that. Issue is this is not enabled in AHS Zoom. So if you do work for AHS and use AHS Zoom, this isn't an option. But for those of you who are working outside, it can be a helpful thing for when you need to go through forms instead of sending an email, waiting for the email, opening the email, checking the email. It just helps things go a bit faster. Show Zoom windows during screen share. This one I actually just learned finally how to do while making this presentation. This was something that I struggled for months and months to figure out how to do. This is what would show your whole little group of people. So if we had a group of 10 here, this would allow me to show the videos of all 10 people on the side of the screen. This I found was a really, really valuable thing when running mental health groups, or really any group where you're wanting people to interact with each other. It adds that face-to-face element again and allows people to see and interact with each other instead of just interacting with their computer screen. As someone who's interacting with just their computer screen right now, as I can see there's 74 participants and I can't see a single one of you, it's a different game. And it's very weird to just talk to a screen and not have that playback. And that's as a professional. So as a client, it can be really helpful to have those windows of all of the people watching as you talk, as you share, and having that personal connection, even though you can't be in the same room. Screen sharing, this is what I am doing right now. And it is also something you can do in Skype, but it is one of my favorite features. There's a couple options in here. You can have host only share or all participants share. I recommend, based on my experience, if you're doing groups, host only is pretty smart so that other people can't just randomly share something or share something inappropriate. If you're doing one-to-one sessions though, all participants share can be helpful when clients are trying to show you a housing application, when clients are trying to show you a letter that they're writing or things like that, where they can just do what I'm doing, pull up their desktop and show you what they're working on. But again, if you want them to have that option, you have to come into the web page and change those settings. Annotation. So the annotation allows host and participants to add information to shared screens. Because this is my first time using the webinar platform, I'm not sure how it works for all of you, but I can show you what annotation looks like in case you can't do it as well. So annotation gives me a pen and lets me draw on the screen. It can also let me type on the screen. Oh, only if I use the right color. No, it doesn't want to type on the screen today. Usually you can type on the screen, at least let me draw. You can add stamps so people can vote for things. You know, they can say, yeah, that's right, that's wrong, etc. And at the end of it, you can just clear them all away. So again, annotations, I have at the bottom here for all three of these features. They allow your clients to interact more with what you're doing. It takes you from a presentation where you're just talking at them, kind of like a professor or a teacher, to letting them really engage with you and interact with your materials. Same with the whiteboard. So I will show you the whiteboard in a moment, but it again allows people to draw. And when I mentioned, if you like visuals, as a visual learner and a visual teacher, the whiteboard has become my best friend, which was great because I kept meaning to buy a real one for here so I'd stop wasting paper. But now I don't have to because I have the Zoom whiteboard to use with all of my clients. One thing I added on here that I found super helpful is A, allowing the saving, and B, auto-saving your whiteboard content when sharing is stopped. So again, when doing mental health groups and in individual sessions, particularly if there's something prepared beforehand, I often found that it was our whiteboard conversations and whiteboard drawings that clients really wanted at the end, because that's where, again, we had that exchange of information of them asking me questions, of me giving them more information, writing it out in a way where they could correct me and be like, that doesn't make sense. So I'd erase it and do it again, or a way that they'd be like, oh, now I get it. Can you send this to me after so I can continue to understand? You can manually save, but it's really sad when you forget. So I recommend having the autosave button checked off. And the bottom one, remote control. So during screen sharing, the person who is sharing can allow other people to control the shared content. This one I find really cool, particularly as we live in our COVID age. This has allowed me to support students and support clients with forms, with logging into things and stuff like that. Like if I have a personal account that has a bunch of my learning professional development papers and stuff, and I wanted to let a student use it, but didn't particularly want to give the student the password to all of my things, they can share their Zoom screen, give me the remote control. I can sign in all my information and pull up what I want for them. And then they can dig through the hundreds of files instead of me having to send them every single file. And same with forms and stuff. If you have to fill in all of your practice information, so a form needs your license ID, and a form needs your address, and a form needs your phone number, and the client just needs this filled out and done, you can have them share remote control. You fill it all in instead of having to tell them so they can fill it in. So again, it just helps things go a little bit faster. And the remote control is also great because that is completely in control of the host, or whoever's sharing has the give remote control access to blank. So people can't just randomly have remote control access. Oops. And again, all three of these allow for more interactive meetings and sessions. So sharing the screen, again, the three we just talked, or the four things we've just talked about, at the bottom of a Zoom window, when you're in the actual meeting, is down in the bottom, and it's typically in green. So you would click share screen. It opens up this window, and you get some options. So these are, again, they use basic and advanced. The basic account has all of these options. Advanced account, I don't recall having anything all that more exciting. But so you can share your screen, you can share the whiteboard, you can share a different page that you have open. For example, right now I have my PowerPoint shared. So you guys, if I left the PowerPoint, the screen would disappear rather than you seeing everything on my desktop, which is also really good for privacy and security and all of those kinds of considerations. If you were someone who had down that you like to share videos or sing songs with your clients, this is a very important little button down here, and that's share computer sound. So if you want to show a video to your clients over Zoom, you just have to click share computer sound and then click what you're sharing, and it will show them your screen and your audio will come out of their video. Again, I found this really, really helpful with my pediatric clients. I was teaching fire safety using a song from YouTube, and instead of me having to hold my phone up to the mic or hold the mic up to my iPad, I just had to click share computer sound. It all came through clearly and on her side, and it worked beautifully. The advanced features in here, again, just some extra options. So you can show a PowerPoint as a virtual background. You can show just a portion of your screen. That one can be really helpful if you're sharing something while also taking notes on the side. You can share just music or computer sound. So again, if you're sharing a soundbite but don't want them to have to look at your whole screen, or content from a second camera. So again, all of that is found by clicking share, and then this opens up automatically. Whiteboard time. So I'm going to do a new share. You guys get to see the whiteboard. Again, I'm not sure on the webinar. If you're able to annotate, feel free to click the annotate button and write on my whiteboard. But again, I'm not sure on the webinar setup, so you might not be able to do so. But on the whiteboard, I can draw, a box that we can write the good things, and we can have a box that we write the worries in, or I can draw, what else do I like to draw for people? I can draw stairs to explain the steps we have to take to get somewhere. I've used these boxes a lot to describe zones of regulation, because it is a really hard concept to understand without seeing the visual. And it allows me to add pieces one by one. So really complex topics. For example, we did an emotional regulation group at Hope and Wellness where we taught the DBT model of emotions. For anyone who has seen that before, it is a bit of a monster. There's 15 boxes or so. So instead of just having to show clients all those boxes and be like, do you get it? We are able to draw out each box one by one and build on the information to avoid that scaring them and having them panic. Again, I can save this, but it will save automatically because I have that setting. You can clean it all off just like a normal whiteboard. And then new share, back to our presentation. Feedback. So nonverbal feedback. So this is where participants in a meeting can express opinions and share feedback by clicking on icons in the participants panel. You can feel free to try that out on your own. It doesn't interrupt the video too much. So if you click on the participants panel, there should be some options. I think this is where you can raise your hand, where you can do a thumbs up, things like that. Again, these are things that are just really nice for improving communication and participant engagement in sessions. It allows you as whoever's presenting to know that your people are there, to know that your people are listening, and to get their opinions on things. So if you had 40 hands pop up at once, you would know, oh, okay, I need to slow down. I should maybe do that again. Meeting reactions, they also allow participants to communicate without interrupting. So they just show an emoji. So a happy face, a sad face. I think I'm getting those two right. I haven't seen them in a while because I've been the presenter for so many Zoom meetings and not really participating in many. This one I have starred. It depends. It's one that depends. Allow remove participants to rejoin. So what this one means is that if you had a group of 8 people and someone left the group, they can come back to the group without going through your waiting room. This can be helpful if you know you have a group where people's internet connections are really bad and they keep popping in and out, popping in and out. But again, also has a bit of a safety concern or consideration of, did you remove them and now they can just come back in? Was there a reason they were supposed to leave and now they can just kind of sneak back in without you knowing? Again, if someone leaves and wants back in and you have a waiting room enabled, they will always go back to the waiting room and you can always readmit them. So I personally prefer that just to make sure I have a sense of who's in my group and have some control over what's going on. Allowing participants to rename themselves. So you always, as the host or presenter, have the ability to rename your participants. I strongly recommend, if you're running a Zoom group in particular, because again, one-to-one sessions, it's just you and the client, that you let them know ahead of time that the expectation is that they will rename themselves to just their first or preferred name. This is a confidentiality privacy thing. We don't want the group members sharing their last names with each other because it makes them easy to find. It takes away some of their anonymity and their safety in the group. So letting them know that that's kind of the expectation. Also, I've had it happen where clients have used other people's Zoom accounts and didn't change the name at all. So I spent an hour calling someone by their sibling's name, and then the next day they corrected me, and I'm like, that is a problem because I documented on the wrong person, because their first name was the same as the first name for another client, and I had never met either one in person before. So based off the name, I just assumed. Never assume, but renaming is really helpful. Hiding participant profile pictures in a meeting. So when I've done group meetings, again, this is more important for groups where the other people who view it are not bound by confidentiality. We'll often take like a 10-minute break in the middle of a 2-hour Zoom group, and everyone shuts off their videos, mutes their mics, and gets water, goes to the bathroom. What I've learned in this time, though, is that most people who have a participant profile picture, it's not one they would typically bring to a mental health meeting. They're sometimes a little bit more risque, and they're a little bit more revealing than they probably wanted to bring to a Zoom group. Not having the picture doesn't change anything. It just means that when they leave, it's a black screen rather than a picture of them. And based off those experiences, I do just recommend don't have the profile pictures. I haven't really seen any that were just generic stock photos of people. This slide got moved one. The reactions. So this is in the advanced one because it has the polls button. But typically in your Zoom screen, reactions will be down in the right corner. Oh, that's all I had on that. Was just showing you where it was in case you can't see on your own Zoom screen. Breakout rooms versus remote support. Reading remote support and the idea that allowing the meeting host to provide one-to-one support to another participant makes that sound like a good idea until you learn you can only have one. If you want to have remote support, you are not allowed to have breakout rooms, and vice versa. Again, more so if you're running groups. If you're running one-to-one sessions, you'll typically be talking to that one other person. The breakout rooms are definitely more valuable in a group. You can split into several groups. And if you have one person who does need one-to-one support, what we've typically done is we just throw either the co-facilitator or someone else who's helping out into a breakout room with that participant, and then they can walk them through whatever difficulty they're having. So you can use a breakout room to provide remote support. The other thing that's kind of cool is if you're feeling well prepared, you know who's going to be in your group, or who's attending that day and you want it to be that you hit breakout rooms and everyone just goes, you can assign participants to breakout rooms when you're scheduling. That's even more advanced, so I don't have a specific slide on that, but it is something you're capable of doing if that's important to you to learn. So breakout rooms right next to reactions. Down in the bottom, you click it. I was making this, as you can see, by myself. I didn't have people to throw in breakout rooms. It is quite clear though. It opens up a window. It says add to breakout room and you click names of who you want to put in, or it'll split it up randomly for you. I'm talking a lot about Zoom today. I will say it is a very user-friendly program. I have really appreciated using it and how easy it has been to learn a lot of these things. The most difficult things to learn I have found have been the things that I had to go through the web page. That's why we're focusing most of our attention on that today. Virtual backgrounds and video filters. So the virtual backgrounds have been a fan favorite ever since Zoom came out, of people being like, look, I'm in San Francisco, look, I'm on a boat. We have disabled these in every group I've been in and in one-to-one sessions I'm in. This is another, I think it comes up after, there it is. This is another one that's a bit of a privacy and safety concern. The virtual background will hide where your person actually is, which if you're in a group, that could mean they're in a place where there are other people, which makes your group less confidential and less private, which is a problem for all your other members who didn't consent to that. It also could hide where they are from you so that if you did lose them abruptly, you don't have any clue as to where they are. It's not a bad practice, meaning it is a good practice idea to confirm with your clients where they are. And if there's an emergency contact to call for where they are before starting a virtual meeting, again, in case you see them collapse, in case they leave in a huff, in case any of those sorts of things happen. But even with all that, not having a virtual background is helpful to get a sense of where they are and that they're safe. That being said, I do have my video filters on. The only thing I've really seen with a video filter is the like enhance my appearance, which just kind of makes you a little bit less wrinkly or have a few less pores. So I haven't seen any harm in that one just yet. I'm pretty sure I have it on today as well. These ones are some accessibility and then the controlled microphones. So show join from your browser link. So this allows participants to bypass the Zoom application download process and join directly from their browser. If you're able to, this is a really nice one to have enabled. Again, enabling, just hit the toggle button and it would turn blue. Because this, for any of your clients who struggle a little bit with computers, who have some issues, or you know they're going to call you 15 times to try and get in, because it's hard when you've never used technology or you haven't used this kind of technology. It allows them to click one button, get into the meeting. It makes the meeting more accessible. We have had people who sign up for groups who are really excited to get support, and then we can't actually support them because they just cannot figure out how to get into the virtual platform. Below, I have the request permission to unmute. This one could be good for things like today, if we were in just a meeting and not in a webinar, and I didn't want people interrupting me, I could have this on so that you can't just talk, you have to ask for permission. That being said, again, on that more personal side of learning to use virtual platforms, it's really nice when you can have that back and forth where people can kind of interrupt you a little bit sometimes to be like, wait a minute, I don't understand. Because while it's sometimes annoying, it is a much more natural flowing conversation where they can pipe in and they can ask their questions, and it just creates a more realistic and more comfortable group setting, I have found. That's in our groups. This one is entirely personal preference, but in the groups I've done, we've never required people to mute unless they have a really noisy background or they have people in the next room. They do have headphones on in those situations, because the moment it takes them to think they want to say something, hit the unmute button, wait for us to notice they hit it and then talk, we lose that natural flow and rhythm of a conversation, which can be really invaluable in a lot of group settings. So polls, this was the one that I wish I could have shown you at the beginning today. This is an advanced feature, meaning you need the licensed version of Zoom to use. It is pretty cool though. So polls, To create a poll, this is going to be pretty quick. You go into your meetings, you go into your personal room, you hit poll, you hit add a poll, you put in this, you can click and it will open up. You type in the name of the poll, you type in the question you want to ask, you can keep adding questions, and you put in the options. Polls can be really cool for particularly larger groups where you're trying to get a sense of everyone, like I had hoped to do today. Or even smaller groups where you're just picking, what do we want to do next week? If you're a rec leisure group of, hey, do we want to go for a walk instead of playing games online next week? And instead of having everyone say yes or no, you can just create a poll, have them hit it. The reason I brought this up though is that it is not in an intuitive place. Polls are located, again, online at zoom.us in the meetings, hidden under personal room. Not intuitive to find, but now you know. Embed passcode for invite link for one-click join. Again, this one can be really helpful for accessibility. It helps people not have to jump through several hoops to get to your meeting. And only authenticated users can join meeting from web. So this one, again, creates more hoops to jump through. And when you're using, again, in my experiences so far, when you're using the waiting room, you have so much control over a lot of these things that people being able to access your waiting room very easily isn't a negative. And again, it can be a huge barrier for a lot of our clients if they have to open up the Zoom downloaded program, if they have to enter the password, enter the meeting ID, probably get some part of it wrong, re-enter it, find out they have to go authenticate somewhere. It's a lot of steps, and that's not what we want. Videos, just a really quick, I mentioned earlier, but we recommend having videos on for groups, for one-to-one, just so you can ensure the person is where they say they are and that they're alone if they said they're alone. You don't want someone jumping in on a group that they haven't signed up for, and you don't want to think you're having a one-to-one session with a client to then find out later that their partner or their parent was sitting on the side the whole time listening. It's not confidential then, it's not private unless you know and they've told you they want that person there. Again, these are safety considerations. This is something I highly recommend people try out, particularly if you have an Android. I did not have access to an Android phone to get this picture for you from there. But at some point, if you're helping someone with Zoom or you're doing a session one-to-one or in a group on Zoom, you will have to troubleshoot someone else's computer from yours, and it will look different and it will take a while. So to help with that, I took some pictures of what Zoom looks like on an iPhone. So it has the four buttons on the bottom. You can mute, start video, share content, or show participants. Again, that participants is where they can do the things like raise their hand and stuff like that. You hit the more button and you would get these options. So they'd have to click more to get to the chat. They have to click more to do the 10-second reactions and things like that. So if you're ever working with someone and they're like, I can't figure out how to start my video, and you're trying to tell them it's on the top left, and they're looking at you, or they're like, no, it's not. It's because it's not. It's in the bottom left because it's different on each device. Bonus security and privacy really quick. So this part isn't going to be specifically about Zoom, but is very helpful to know when using Zoom. And this, again, sorry to Mac users, this one is for anyone using Windows. I warned you this would be fairly AHS specific. And this is about how to stop pop-ups from other things like your Outlook or from your email. I guess that's also in your Outlook, from popping up when you're sharing your screen. So I have just a really quick, you click, I think this is called the home button, but you click the window, you pick systems, you pick focus assist, and then when you are duplicating your display, you can have off that you'll never get anything. You can have it during certain times, you won't get anything, or you can have that it'll show alarms only. What this does is I've had emails come through when I'm sharing my screen. Fortunately, none that were fully confidential, but ones that were, about work that I didn't need my clients seeing. And so you scramble to close it and you click as fast as you can. And you're like, I wish that just wouldn't have popped up. This is how you do that. You follow those steps, which again, I'm not going to go through in too much depth, but if you rewatch this video later, it'll tell you how. But you go through those steps and it'll stop you from getting pop-ups while you're sharing your screen. So what have we learned today? So the things I'm hoping you've learned today are a couple advanced features from Zoom, including how to use the whiteboard, why it might be helpful, how to use the annotation button, doing screen share and audio share, using the remote control, doing polling, and how to get reactions. Some safety and confidentiality things that I tried to emphasize today included not having virtual backgrounds because it can create some question to safety and confidentiality, modifying the names so there's no last name, again, confidentiality, clients having their cameras on, turning your alerts off while screen sharing, and the benefits of waiting rooms. And then the extra bonus was the accessibility that came up as I was reviewing all of this, that the fewer clicks required to join your meeting, the more accessible it's going to be. So that brings us to putting it all together. I think our plan was breakout rooms, but now that we're in the webinar, I don't think that's an option I have. So that's okay. It can be something that you can discuss with anyone else you know who saw this, or just think about to reflect on your own. So you can reflect on what features do you feel like you'll be able to effectively use on Zoom after today, or features that you're like, no, I definitely need to remember how to use that. And then the more important thing I wanted people to think about leaving today was that this webinar discussed how you can use Zoom to enhance your virtual practice and make it more than just a video phone call. But as any of us would know, our therapy is more about the relationship between us and our clients. So reflecting or talking, if you're watching with someone else, of will what you learned today help you enhance your therapeutic relationships while on a virtual platform? And if so, how? How are you going to be able to use these skills and these tools to provide the best virtual care you can? So we are into question and answer time. So feel free. Oh, would you go through turning off the sound when getting an email again? Yes, I can. I zoomed through that. I keep saying that. It's pun not intended. I'm sure there's another way to turn off settings within Outlook. But the way I found, just so that you don't get some other app deciding to send you anything, is you click the window at the bottom left of your screen. It'll take you to Windows Settings. From there, you're going to go into your system up in the top left. From there, you go down in system until you find Focus Assist. Focus Assist chooses what notifications you'd like to see in here so you can stay focused. The rest will go to the Action Center so you can see them later, but they won't just keep popping up on the side. You can have it set to just off, that nothing will get through at any time. You can have it set to alarms only, which is what I have. In case I did have an alarm set, I don't want to miss it. And then you can also have automatic rules so that between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. priority only, or different hours, that when you're duplicating your screen, only alarms are allowed through. But again, if you just want them gone completely, you go through all of these steps to find Focus Assist and you just hit off and they will stop popping up on you. I hope that answered the question. Any other questions for me, either in the Q&A or in the chat box? I realize I didn't put it on here, so I will use my handy whiteboard. If you have questions after this, or you want to know anything about how we've been doing with using Zoom for one-to-one therapy sessions, one-to-one OT sessions, any of those things. Oh, right, it doesn't want me to use that. You can give me an email at jenilyn.miglin, so my first name and my last name, at ahs.ca, and I'll do my best to answer with any questions I have. We had another question. So I don't have a webcam. Have you tried using your phone as a camera with your computer? I have actually done this. Usually what you have to do, or what I've done, is just joined my own meeting twice. So I join once from my computer and once from my phone. I hook my phone over the edge of my computer because I have one of those cases. And I can share and do all of those things off of my computer while talking to the person through my phone. With that, I do recommend, though, that you have all forms of volume. So the microphone, the speakers, just everything off on one of the two devices, because otherwise you get really, really bad feedback. Ooh, what are your thoughts on how clients can share their artwork in a secure way? Not quite sure on that one. Within Zoom, I feel like, sorry, I get distracted quickly. I think they can share it, again, within Zoom with us in a secure way. I'm not sure on how they would share it outside without risking infringement and things like that. If anyone has an answer to that better than mine, because mine was not very good. Paste. Oops. It doesn't want to. I'm just going to type it. No, I'm not going to type it. My keyboard's not happy with me. That one I don't know the answer to right now, but you can feel free to email me and I can try and find some answers for you. Yes, this will be able to, or you will be able to view this again on SAOT. I don't know when they plan on having everything up, but it will be on the SAOT website. Singing together in the time lag. One thing I have kind of found is the time lag in both directions, so it seemed to actually line up. Because I've sang "Are You Happy and You Know It" a lot on Zoom. As long as their connection was fine, they were hearing me at the same time as the music. So really it would be more so for me that it would sometimes double, but for whoever was getting it, it was working quite well. Perfect. Andrew's answering some questions for you. Yes, so we can also send out the handouts in an email after this. Hopefully they'll be useful with just some of the arrows and stuff. But again, I did most of this presentation verbally, so I recommend fast forwarding through the video to find the things you want. Group session experiential. Depends on what type of experiential. So what kind of experiential are you hoping for? Oh, let's just send a second. In the chat, we had the question, have you had any problems with not using a passcode in your group setting? So we have used a passcode for everything. I've just had it that you can automatically get to the thing clicking the link, even though the passcode is there, it just connects the two. I feel like AHS doesn't allow us to not have a passcode. I often don't use one in my private practice because, again, it's just another step for people. And the waiting room gives me that security that I pick who's in my room. I don't think AHS gives us that option. I believe we are required to have one. Oh, perfect. Because yes, hopefully Kathleen can access the mic for her question. But, oh, no, she can't because she doesn't have her headset. She told us that at the beginning. I remember. Awesome. So many good questions, you guys. And these two actually kind of tie together of how to make group sessions more experiential and how to engage people when they're not answering or having questions or engaging. I will comment on the second one there it's actually a lot like today in the fact that I can't see any of you, but when you're talking just to dead space, You're like, okay, nobody's with me today. What I actually really like when I don't have people engaging with me is I pull out the whiteboard and I go, okay, what are we missing? Because there are days when everyone's just low energy, but I have found a lot of days where people are just, they're not really on the same page as everyone. So it's going back and finding out, what do we need? You can add things like the annotation and have people have to fill in things. What else have we done to make people engage with us? Not even a virtual group specific one, but it was a really, really cool day at Hope and Wellness, and it got us some of our best engagement in an opening, was asking non-threatening questions. So we like to do icebreakers in our groups, and we asked the clients to give us an example of one, and she asked, how do you like your coffee? And everyone was able to answer and give like really detailed answers, including, I don't like coffee, I like this one brand of English tea. But it got people feeling comfortable talking because there was no pressure. And I found that actually quite helpful. Again, some of these jump into group facilitation skills that I didn't fully prep up on before today. I mostly prepped up on Zoom. But I find that helpful. We will put people kind of on the spot in terms of, oh, your turn to read. And that's where that having your Zoom video so you can see everybody can be super helpful, because then they're all seeing each other. There's less of that counting on everyone else to do it for you, because they can all see each other and they all see each other being like, oh no, I don't want to. I'm really wishing I had more ideas off the top of my head for making group sessions experiential. And I think that's one that I might write up a list after this, add it to the end of my slides and send it out, just because I don't want to waste too much time sitting here thinking. So I will reflect on that one for the next like 20 minutes and add it to the end of the slides. Hopefully that answered Jennifer's question at least. I'll have more answers for you later, Kathleen. Any other questions that I haven't heard? Repeat my email address. I figured out what was going on with my keyboard. It was not plugged in, so I can actually write it down now. It is a Monday after all. ahs.ca. I'm glad the OT task analysis helped. And I hope that and this was from Laura, and I hope that the large group education sessions go well. That might be one where you do want to make people ask permission before they talk. Yes, this is my email. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to let me know. And I will stick around for the next like 4 minutes if people have additional questions. But if not, then I hope everyone else has a great rest of their Monday. And we'll see you tomorrow for our next presentation. Or I guess I won't see you, but I'll see your numbers. Oh, and please complete the survey. It is posted in the chat button. Thanks, everyone.